Welcome to Lift Your Story podcast with guest Stephen Murray, computer software business owner and author. Hi everyone, I am Lorianne. I am that gal from Toronto, Canada, and I'm with.
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to our Lift Your Story podcast.
In this episode, we welcome Stephen Murray. He is a computer software business owner and also an author. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you both for having me on your show. It's a pleasure to be here, and I thank your listeners for tuning in.
All right, great. So, Stephen, besides owning your own software company, you've done a lot of traveling. Can you tell us a little bit about your travels?
Yes, it's one of the things I really enjoy about life, and I guess it started as a child. I was born in England and I was raised in Southern Africa. The family moved there when I was a child, and we moved around quite a bit in different countries in South Africa, and I guess that's where I got the bug. And when I got back to live in England, I traveled across Europe. Then I came to the States, and I've had the good fortune to travel to all of the continents and some nice, unusual places like Bhutan in the Himalayas and Machu Picchu in South America and Palau in Micronesia. So different places that are away from the norm.
Can I ask why? Sorry, Roy. I was just going to ask, why did you move so much as a child?
Well, the family just decided to move to, it was then Southern Rhodesia when I was 7 years old. It's now Zimbabwe. And when we were in Southern Rhodesia, my father got the opportunity of a job in a little country called Basutoland. And he moved there because it was a good government job. And unfortunately, there were no schools there. Maseru, the capital city, only had 2,000 people. So it's one of those little remote countries. And so we had to go to boarding school in South Africa. And so that was Southern Rhodesia, Basutoland, and South Africa. And then when I went back to live in Southern Rhodesia, I was transferred to Nyasaland for 6 months. It's now Malawi. So that's why there was a little bit of moving around there. Okay. So I grew up in all those different places.
Thank you.
Do you have a favorite place you've lived?
I think right now in the here and Pleasant, I think Las Vegas is probably just about one of the most exciting cities in the world. What can you say? You know, it's known as Sin City, but we're the marriage capital of the world and everything in between. So we have the Sin City and the love aspect, and as I said, everything else that goes along with it.
Roy, did you notice? What's behind Stephen?
The eagle.
It's the eagle.
Yep.
Oh, and yeah, it's in my office.
So Las Vegas open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And, you know, there's a lot of people coming and going. I know my wife traveled there for business one time in the summer, and she said, we got off the airplane, and she said, walking across from the airplane to the building, my tennis shoes were melting on the tarmac. It's so hot.
Well, that can be very true in the summer months. You know, fortunately, we don't have that 12 months year round. But she's absolutely right. You know, if it's June, July, and August, yes, that can happen. You step off the airplane and the heat just knocks you for a six. It does.
Well, it's like that in Dallas too.
It's a small price to pay though for the benefits. At least we don't have those freezing winters where you've got to knock the snow out of the driveway and all of that stuff.
Thank goodness for that.
Yes.
So now you're an author as well. So how did you come from being a traveler to a computer software company owner to being an author?
Well, I've had the computer software company for 39 years, and I've been in computer software all my life since I graduated high school. Round about 12 years ago, I suddenly thought I'd really like to write a book on my travel experiences, you know, having been all the way around the world to 40 countries. Thought it would be kind of nice to put all of that down, those experiences, the different cultures and different places. And I spent 2 years just writing it and plotting it and spelling it all out, and discovered this real joy of writing. And then I was told that those kind of things don't sell. You know, people aren't interested in biographies unless you're somebody very well known. So I was told I had to write women's fiction, about which I knew absolutely nothing, absolutely nothing. But I had discovered a joy of writing, and I thought I've got to start coming up with some women's fiction and have a stab at it and see if I could do it. So the first book I wrote, The Chapel of Eternal Love, was never intended to be published. It was just a challenge to see if I could write a woman's fiction book. But life takes us down paths that we never anticipate or expect. And lo and behold, the next thing, it was out there and spawned a sequel and 2 other books, and a 5th one now being typeset as we speak. Should be out next month. So that's how
amazing.
I came about writing.
Wow. So you wrote the book. Maybe you ought to go into romance novels. You can sell those things all day long, fast.
Well, they say write about what you know, and I'm pushing the envelope a little bit, writing about marriage when I've led a single life my whole life. So I'm pushing the envelope a little bit there. I don't know how far I can stretch it.
That's good.
Yeah, that is good.
That's really good.
Well, and the last book, I have to tell you, I'm really pushing it, is about the last novel, Discreetly Yours, is about 3 elegant, classy ladies, very sophisticated, who work for the most exclusive escort agency in Las Vegas. And I have to tell you, I know nothing about the escort agency business. No research was done whatsoever. It's all imagination. And they come up with the perfect crime to get rid of the guy that runs the agency. So that's a murder mystery that takes place with 3 exclusive escort agents. And so I'm pushing the envelope there as well. I don't know about taking it that step further and going into romance.
I really hate to admit this. Well, I do know somebody in that business, not a friend, but I do know. And I'm sitting there going, when you get that book done, I'll give it to her and I'll ask her if it's precise or not. Yeah, I mean, somebody I never would have thought that would have gotten into it. That's the crazy thing, is that some of these women that get into this, like tomboy as a kid, never would have thought that she would be that character, you know, oh, when you grow older, you're going to be one of those, because she was such a tomboy. And then, whoa, not anymore. And then she got into that, and it was really interesting. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to read the book, and then I'll get a copy from you. Absolutely. And I'll give it to her as a gift and say, can you tell me if this is real?
Well, yes, let me know afterwards, and let me know her name, and I'll sign a copy to her, so that
and then
yeah,
I just don't want to make sure, I want to make sure that this whole, because you're saying that they're all getting together to get rid of the that person.
Well, the guy
I don't want you to be the reason for she might do this.
Well, the owner that runs the agency, he really is a true crumb. I mean, he's bad news. And
Love it.
These 3 ladies, they've got very different reasons for getting shot of him, for no pun intended. And you stick with them through the story as they come up and they plot and they plan and they connive, you know, what they think is a perfect crime.
Love it.
And of course, the mystery is, do they overlook one tiny little detail that brings the whole lot crashing down? Or do they actually get away with the perfect crime? That's the mystery. And so far, nobody's been able to figure out to the end. But as it relates to your friend, I have to say there's no graphic sex in the book. There's no graphic violence. There's no expletives. I mean, your grandmother could read it. It's just the subject matter, you know.
Oh, my mother will love it, Ken.
Well, it sells very well at senior centers of all places. You know, I go and talk a lot at senior centers, and I stopped when the last book came out because I thought, I don't know whether it would appeal to them, but the senior centers I've spoken to said, oh no, come back with a book. And I've been amazed that when I present the 4 novels, the biggest seller happens to be discreetly yours about the 3 escorts at senior centers. So who knows, you know, the audience tells you what they want, I guess, you know, never underestimate your audience.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're reliving the past, their dreams, you know, I mean, I can kind of see that, but that's interesting that you would go to that, to speak to those people in senior homes. How did you come about doing that?
I think, well, because my business partner's father was in a senior center, and they had an activities director. And when I had published my first book, the Chapel of Eternal Love, about the fictional Las Vegas wedding chapel, I spoke to the activities director and I said, have you ever thought of having an author come and speak to your residents? And she just grabbed me and said, oh, I'd love it. And so I went and I spoke there, and then they were part of a group of senior centers, and then she put me in touch with the others, and it's just kind of snowballed. And now all of a sudden I'll be driving along and I'll hear about a new senior center that's opened, you know, in another part of Las Vegas, and I pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, you interested in having an author come along and talk to your residents? And a lot of them, now we have what we call a Meet the Local Authors series, and I find authors to go and speak every month at these places, and it's just been an ongoing part of the recreation there. Not so much recently because of COVID, of course, it's quietened down a little bit, but it'll kick back up again once we're through all this.
Phenomenal idea.
It is. It really
Like
is.
I'm who would have ever thought of that?
Yeah.
Well, sorry, Stephen, you did, but we're talking about authors are out there and they're saying, I want to, and it's not that it's going to make me $1 million, but what it will do is it's going to get your name out there. But it's so satisfying too, isn't it?
It's satisfying, and you know, sometimes the number of attendees can be mixed. Sometimes you can find yourself speaking to 2 or 3 people, and other times it could be 20, 21. But it doesn't matter, you know, sometimes it's not always about selling books. It's just about, you know, one, giving something back. Secondly, seniors are very appreciative audiences. You know, if you flub up in your presentation, they really don't care. They just appreciate the fact that somebody's coming out and talking to them, so they're not forgotten. So it's rewarding from that viewpoint. And unfortunately these days, you know, there's basically Barnes and Noble and maybe a couple of independent bookstores in most major cities. You have to think outside the box. You just have to, and call different venues. On Saturday, I'm going to speak at a Urban Vitamin store, have a book signing there. And I just happened to go in there, and they had a bookshelf up against the wall with some health food books, and there was a lot of space in front. And I said to the manager, hey, you know, would you like to have somebody come and do a book signing? And I gave him my bookmarks and said, you know, if you do it, I'll put it in my newsletter and I'll put it out on my website, so you get some, you know, it's got to be a two-way street, you know, when you're marketing, it's got to be back and forth. And said, oh, we'd love to have you come in. So lo and behold, next month I gone there Saturday for 3 hours. But you've got to think outside the box, and places like senior citizens centers, you know, see the opportunity, just grab it.
vitamin stores. And I'm sorry, but you could probably even go to a whole bunch of different stores, like lingerie stores. Like, I'm sorry.
Well,
Hey, I used to work at one. I'm not joking.
yeah,
Like that would, women come in and women like those books, but what I did, I worked there for 2 years. I worked in a lingerie store. And by the way, men walk in there too. But
yeah.
really interesting thought too. And small, they're business owned, small business owners. And it brings attention. So great idea. I should have known, thinking about marketing. I know that, everybody thinks about going to an Indigo or Barnes Noble and asking if you're local, will you take me in? And they will. But you're going definitely outside the box and thinking, I'm going to a different store. I'm going to seniors. I'm going to somewhere that
Sure.
we really don't, as authors, because Roy and I both authors as well. I wouldn't have thought of it. Would you, Roy?
No.
No.
Well, it's just like his books in a vitamin store. I would have never even
Right.
considered
Well, sorry, I
that.
was thinking Viagra in a way, kind of.
But I can see it. I can see it now. We'll see a Victoria's Secret commercial and see Steven on there, and we'll go, "Oh, I remember him. We interviewed him."
Well, but you have to think of your book subject matter and think of where the audience might be. And not far from where I live, there happens to be a huge beauty salon. They do massages there and women's facials and manicures and pedicures, the whole shebang. And one year, it was the day before Valentine's Day, and it happened to be Saturday the 13th. And I thought, boy, I bet there's going to be a lot of women going in there, sprucing themselves up for their Valentine's Day dates and what have you. And I just spoke to the owner and said, could I come in and do a signing, book signing with my chapel books, they're female romance books, and why not? And she was absolutely delighted. She said, oh yes. She said, we'll sit you up right at the counter here, right where people check out, and you've got all this counter space to put your books on stands and so on and so forth. But if you're self-published, you're forced into doing these things that you wouldn't normally do. You have to, because you've got nobody else at your back.
Stephen, just quickly, even if you are published by a publishing company, yes, they get you in there. But I remember working for a publisher, and the author still had to be a big part of the marketing of the book. So the only thing is that there's a bit of the backup, maybe, but not a lot of money backup for the marketing. I remember that. But they would put it into stores. So you would go to, like the Barnes Nobles, they would distribute it to Walmart, wherever the books go. But the marketing aspect itself, that's up to you, the author.
Oh yes,
because people are buying you.
That is true. And that's but as you said, at least the publishers, they will get it into the Walmarts and things like that that I can't do. So I'm forced to compensate, or most self-published authors are forced to compensate by doing all that marketing themselves. But that's part of the fun. The joy has transpired, not just writing the book. That's a small part of it. The fun part is being on podcasts like this, going to book signings, you're meeting people, and it's just a great journey that I certainly never expected certainly at this stage of life. It's not traveling the globe, but it's a journey nonetheless, and it's a very fun and enjoyable one. I'm just loving it.
Yeah, you're doing what you want to do when you want to do it, basically.
Yes, and it's another nice thing about self-publishing. There's no pressures. You've got to get the next book out by a certain date, and my next novel is a nice, warm and fuzzy Christmas book, and I was hoping to have it out by now, and it's still not out. But I'm not going to stress and lose any sleep over it. If it comes out, it'll be great. If it doesn't, well, dust them off next Christmas, I guess, or bring it out in July when they start doing Christmas in July.
Yeah, yeah, really. Now, since you've written your books and stuff, do you kind of look back and say, what my life would have been like if I would have been an author back when I started doing computer software business? Do you ever wonder if that could have been your calling, maybe?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that, Roy. It's possible, of course, but I don't know if I would have been able to be disciplined enough. I think it's very different when you're doing things as a hobby as opposed to when you're, forced to do something. And I'm not too sure as being an author would have afforded me the opportunity to travel throughout the world, which the computer software business did allow me to do. So sometimes I think we're all meant to be in the place where we're supposed to be when the time comes. I know that sounds a little bit serendipitous, but I really do happen to believe that to be the case, that we're like atoms. We hit somebody and we bounce off in a different direction, and then we hit another atom and it bounces us somewhere else. And I think that's how our lives are meant to be.
That's beautifully said, and I totally agree. I need to ask you something, because we're talking about your software company. Can you give us an idea of what kind of software that you were involved with? Because of course I'm a techie freak since 1984 when I first got my first computer. Never mind before that with Commodore. So that stuff interests me. What kind of software you were?
Oh, we do. It's application software.
Okay.
And I started doing that literally from high school. Do you remember a company called NCR, National Cash Register?
Yep. Oh yeah, they were big, huge.
Yeah, they used to be really huge. Way back when computers first were coming out, there was IBM, and they took me on straight from high school as a trainee person. And those were in the days when we had systems analysts and we go out and we'd sit and design the systems and all that kind of stuff. And now for the last 39 years that I've had the business, we do application software for all different kinds of businesses. Most of it happens to be in the financial world. And we've kept our clients. We haven't really moved with the times because a lot of our clients have kept the same systems. They've invested so much money in it over the years. They're reluctant to throw it all out and start again on a Windows-based system. So we're still maintaining those, and as time goes by, the business is diminishing just through attrition. Our clients, they're getting old and retiring and selling their businesses or shutting them down, and we're just keeping the few that we've got. And it's nice. It brings a little bit of money in, and it allows me to do my writing and enjoy life.
That's interesting that you say that. Just quickly again, I was in the automotive industry, and there's a Windows-based, like I was in service advisor, and there's the sales, and there's some of the dealerships that moved on to the Windows-based stuff, but there's some that stayed on, which was very kind of almost DOS-based. Of course, I grew up with DOS, so that was like not a problem for me, and I caught on really quickly. But it's interesting that a lot of people don't know that there are still people working on programs like that.
Yes.
That because the functionality of it, and like you said, the investment that they put into it, and that if there's a bunch of dealerships that are working on it, then now you have all of this information there. Once that's gone, to transfer that into Windows, all that information that's been there for all those years would be, I would imagine, seriously difficult to do for even a programmer.
Well, I think you're right on that, Jeannie. And I think also there's lots of companies now, they're combining the two, if you will. They're having people from the outside looking at a website, but it goes back to the Unix-based systems, which is what we're using, where it does all the calculations and all the computations. So we're doing all the background stuff, and somebody else is doing the nice, pretty little screen formatting stuff on the front. So they're merging and blending the two. So it's
So there, okay, so it's
been
transferable,
interesting
easy
stuff.
enough. It's just people are deciding not to do it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stephen, where can our listeners get your books?
They can get my books. I have websites for all of them, but the main website is authorstephenmurray.com. That's STEPHEN, and Murray is MURRAY.com. And that will tell them about myself as an author and my background. And then it has links to all 4 of the books, and they can go and learn all about them and read the reviews, the professional reviews and the reader reviews, the synopses, and there's the options there to buy them. They can also go and get them on Amazon.com, and they're also available in any bookstore, but they would need to go to the website to pick up all the titles of each of the books.
Okay. Okay.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for being our guest, Stephen. We really enjoyed meeting you.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting to you, and have a wonderful evening there in Texas, Roy, and bonsoir, Jeannie in Ontario. It's been lovely chatting with both of you, and I hope your listeners have enjoyed listening as much as I've enjoyed being a guest on your program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Stay safe.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.